Hello, hello. I'm here with Stefano DeSaro and Teflon of Rich. How are you guys doing?
Good afternoon, Zoe. Doing well. Teflon, how you doing, brother? We
Well,
lost. But Zoe, thank you so much for having me and having Teflon. Hopefully you can come back in.
of course,
Uh,
great to have you both back at the same time. Um, so first, do you want to give a brief intro to you and to Rich?
Absolutely. So, been in the blockchain space for about 5 years, 6 years, and saw a real lacking in, I would say, a healthy pathway to success in the cryptocurrency space. With information so scattered about, maybe how to do one particular task and then left to your own devices on how to accomplish the second task. We really find that information curated for all the steps along the investor journey would be an incredible place to start a collaborative effort. So me and Teflon are taking on this challenge and using the rich token, the rich ecosystem, as an incentive program combined with other tools in order to accomplish this task of curating the investor process from step one all the way until they're they see the success that they are aiming at.
That's good. That's so important, so innovative, and especially because at each of those steps, there's a lot of information and perhaps misinformation out there that is given to them, and making sure that they make informed decisions getting into crypto, getting into investment in general. It's so important that they're able to navigate that. So, as a founder in the space, what's your best advice, or how do you tend to approach um, this type of advising, this type of navigation of information?
So the first thing is to verify the primary sources. Where is the information coming from? And are you just going based on what you want to hear, what you believe to be true, or what the big players in the space are discussing? Once you find the credible sources, which there are many, you can actually go back and verify what they're saying using the on-chain data. If somebody is telling you that a particular blockchain is up and coming and the developer, let's call it the teams, like the teams of developers are growing, you can check all of that with on-chain data. Uh, once you verify the on-chain data, you can go through community vetting, find the projects that are being built within the community's ecosystems, find the people that are maybe not the developing team, but the supporting team, the voices that are saying, hey, this is a safe place to invest. These developers are doing the right things. All of the growth and the technology is moving in the right direction.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, the vetting process, it really is so easily measurable on your own if you're just, view the data yourself. And that's huge. And I think that, that's quite quick of an education process to get people to that point, to just point them where to look. And then it's evidence based, and you don't have to, they don't have to question themselves or whoever is speaking to them because it's there. It's just, very objectively there. And So what are some other ways that we can empower investors to include digital assets in their portfolios? What advice should we share with them, and how can we leverage technology to enhance the experience of those investors?
So once you find a um, potential investment, there should be a few things that you look for, and one of them is obviously percent growth year over year, right? Where has this investment been in the past? Where is it currently? And project where could it be in the future? And I can't think of a better example of that than cryptocurrency. Even just take Bitcoin as an example and say this particular asset has outperformed most most investment vehicles, most stocks. Uh, we're looking at thousands of percent gain, right? Just in a few short years. So when it comes to empowering the investor, I believe that confidence in the investment itself, based on its history, is so important. And when it comes to leveraging the technology, since cryptocurrency is in itself a technology, it becomes an ecosystem that you can almost dip your hand in and move your own assets around however you'd like. There are so many different ways that you can hold, store, earn, yield on your assets, lend them, and all of that is dependent on risk tolerance. So understanding the investment first, saying, hey, here's where this investment could go, and then saying, where do you see yourself going along for this ride? Is it cold storage? We have that. Hardware wallets? We have that. Do you want to earn yields? Do you want to stake your assets and take in 4 or 5% APY? Those are all options that are available. Now, all of that is determinant on the knowledge, the information that the investor has, and I think that having more outlets for that information is so important. So, Teflon, if you're with us, would you like to talk a little bit more about what it is like to educate these new investors and how we can empower them to make these hard decisions? Uh,
A great question. Yes, Teflon appears to be frozen at the moment, but he's given me excellent, I mean, he's given both of us as and a lot of other community members as well, a lot of great advice on the topic. And yeah, I mean, starting with that education is just so much of it. Um, just explaining, what kind of questions. Yeah, as with any kind of, introductory topic to a new technology, to a new type of investment, I think just encouraging people to ask the right questions and know what to ask is a big first step, because jumping to answers isn't always painting the whole picture necessarily. And yeah, and speaking of, painting a full picture, cryptocurrencies have been gaining traction through traditional investment vehicles like ETFs and futures contracts. Are these institutional grade products the new standard for cryptocurrency?
I believe that those investment vehicles are essential for the, I would say the traditional investor. If there is a new technology and it could be very risky, those who are risk adverse should have options to be exposed to it somehow. Now, since cryptocurrency is a technology that you can, manage yourself, create your own keys, create your own wallets, having custodial services, especially at the institutional level, is a great step towards mass adoption and a great step towards positive narratives in the space as a whole. I think a lot of people uh, don't like them. They don't think that it is the it doesn't go along with the purpose of the technology. Maybe it is even reductive in progress. But I can't imagine a better way to get funding for these projects, credibility for new developers to be able to say, hey, I'm building in a space, and some of the greatest asset management companies in the world are holding these assets. I think all around, it's a very healthy thing for the ecosystem, for the environment.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that matched with the regulatory clarity that, essentially goes hand in hand in that. Um, with,
Yeah.
really it is a plus and will continue to drive the scalable adoption of what we've been trying to build for years. So,
Now, I don't know if they would be the new standard, right? Since it is a decentralized space, it would really be a mix. I would say it's gonna be a mix. We gotta have both. We gotta have both options.
true. Yeah, I mean, that's a really important distinction. Um, the diversity is so important.
Yeah.
Um, just as far as, reaching different types of investors, different types of users of the technology, meeting people where they're at as, as individuals. And
How do you see that where you're from in your industry? Is it mostly new interests from the institutional level?
yeah, so mostly, kind of previously being overwhelmed by the technology and um, its complexities and realizing that it can be simplified and essentially that's what we're doing for them. So their user interface, for example, is not different than what they've already been using, whether it be the wealth management product or the payments product. It's really just very familiar. It has built-in compliance reporting for, whether it be a system administrator or an accountant. Getting the information that they need in front of them is just so important, really, with any system that you're trying to build for enterprise users. A lot of it is about how easy it will be to roll out, how easy it will be to drive adoption to get them to use it, because otherwise it's just pointless. It's not, it's a nice idea, but um, it's not practical. It's not pragmatic, but being able
You
to
see
make it useful.
the ease of the investment process taking over a potentially more secure option.
Oh yeah. I mean, certainly, as far as, for example, read-only wallet management, um, and the enhanced, the security enhancement that's associated with that. Um, no access to private keys for those, to anyone who doesn't need it. principle of least
Mm.
privilege in IT security. And also, yeah, I mean, as far as the risk tolerance variation per investor that you mentioned, being able to manage that along with other information on that customer, if you're a financial advisor, for example, is paramount because you're able to really understand their goals and really present to them information that they're going to you as the expert about. Like, for example, what are the implications of having certain families scenario, whether that has to do with their goals for retirement. Um, and again, that kind of roadmap that you've discussed as far as the full investment process. So, for example, once you succeed, whatever metrics you define that as,
Mm.
then what will you do with that? What will your goals be as far as, reinvestment or giving back, um, spending, all the, all the decisions that need to be made once you do have some sort of asset.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see in the next few years, which, could be, it feels like light years, really, in this space. But yeah, with the traditional finance system finally adopting this technology, will it be a full 180 to where we're going to Fidelity and JP Morgan for our digital assets, or are we going to be going to Pancake Swap?
I still think it would vary on people's preferences. Like there are still crypto natives, particularly the young investors who might always feel comfortable with that. But it's not just age. Like I have friends outside of tech who are also my age or younger who would very much be dependent on something more more institutionally friendly, if you will. And so I think it still depends on the person. I still think it's a matter of preference, and I think there will always be not just two seen, but several sets of people in terms of their preferences, where that comes from, and what makes sense for them. I think any technology really needs to be customizable. And I mean, that's why there are entire markets for each category of tech. There are so many decisions to be made. Um, yeah,
I'm interested to see if there's a way to measure institutional activity versus the decentralized, activity of just the crypto natives.
that would be interesting. I mean, how to even start breaking that down is, be quite interesting. Um, Yeah, I mean, and how will that likely evolve over time? I mean, will the potential for increased simplicity just be so tempting that even if people, could or would be able to continue with self-custody, for example, then does that mean that they would, depending on how streamlined um, the institutionalized tech could be? Yeah, for example, if it gets significantly more affordable and accessible, then how many people would still choose to manage these things on their own? I don't know. That's a very good question.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, it's all about their time, their preferences still ultimately. But I do think that the shift will, there will be, an increasing shift as long as it's made simpler, cheaper. Because why not? I mean, people could allocate their time and energy elsewhere, but we'll just see how much and at what rate. Well, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts?
It may come down to incentives. If if there are similar applications with the centralized entities like earning yields, staking, potentially even liquidity pools. If I know that I can enter into a XRP BTC liquidity pool and I'm earning fees, I'm earning, basically a passive income. I may trust something like my my ledger, my Ledger Nano, and hold my assets there and earn that APY. Now, I don't know what the exact benefits are in that sense with these traditional vehicles, but I think if we can allow the education and the ease ability of accessing these financial benefits, these financial tools, we could see a little bit of competition from the ease to the complexity with benefits.
Yeah, yeah, very well said about that competition aspect. And so what are some ways to better fortify a user's data online when managing digital assets and other personal information? Because it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah. So this is crypto investing 101. And I think just online experience 101, right? You start off with a VPN, you start with a crypto wallet that you don't keep your keys online. This is more your expertise, right? Security online.
Yeah, yeah. And it's it definitely differs in that regard from other advice that we're supposed to give based on standards of, password management, for example. We're typically supposed to advise to use a password manager. But for the keys, we're explicitly supposed to store them completely offline, as you mentioned, good old paper. Um, because I guess, in a lot of contexts, the physical security risks behind that are less significant than online risks because you're managing likely various types of assets in that same wallet. So being able to access those funds is obviously a huge risk. So yeah, I mean, just starting from that point, it's very different, very significant. Um,
Right, right. Well, at least from the crypto investor side, a pretty much rule of thumb that I like to follow is keys on paper inside of a fireproof envelope inside of a fireproof box. And you want two of those. You want to have them in two different physical locations. That way, backups that are both fortified, safe. And then yeah, the security online is an animal entirely in itself. Is there any programs that you prefer for, password management?
in general, I have not yet recommended um, LastPass because of, certain breaches. So depending on the context, I have recommended open source ones
Hmm.
or 1Password, but nothing is perfect. And yeah, still would not recommend that in general. For example, private keys or C phrases per se, because I would recommend something like what you just described. still be backups, but have it all be physical and fireproof because even if it's not a matter of being stolen, a loss is a loss. So if there is some sort of fire, natural disaster, you're still losing it. And anyone with horrible handwriting like myself, just be extra careful, be extra cognizant of that. Um,
I've had that happen before, confuse an H for an N.
oh gosh, and then it doesn't matter what happens afterward, you just keep, yeah, it's
Mm.
ridiculous. And those letters, some of them really look alike, but yeah. I mean, locking yourself out of your own personal information is no good either. Um, I guess lack of access, complete lack of access, I suppose has some sort of benefits over having it stolen because,
Mm.
potential misuse or, depending on the context, misuse and kind of, framing you or holding you liable, depending on the context, is worse because it's not just lack of access. But let's try to avoid all of that together. Um,
These phishing scams are getting more and more intricate, whether it is emails that look like they're from centralized exchanges or actual micropayments being sent to your decentralized wallets. It really is. It's essential to be able to, have the solutions to these problems all, ready and accessible to these new investors and even investors that have been in the space, but the scams are getting more and more intricate, more and more complicated.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, especially phishing scams in general with the use of generative AI. Um, you can just, an attacker could very easily fake so much of the process. So not just the technical controls, but like, the social controls way too easily, having a easily getting a good sense of one's entire online identity, which is inevitably connected from multiple sources. Uh, and yeah, I mean, it's really, again, with the critical thinking, with the importance of starting with solid education for any of it.